I want to welcome everybody today to the presentation, Things You Didn't Know Inventor Could Do. I want to introduce myself very quickly. I hope many of you have heard of me or worked with me in the past. I think that's probably the case, but I'm an application engineer. I live in Hampton, Virginia. My background, I started in shipbuilding, so a lot of my war stories and a lot of my examples have still to this day have to do with shipbuilding. They're still one of my primary support customers that I deal with. I also focus a lot on the factory design utilities, and I hope many of you are familiar with those. But this is one of those rare opportunities where I get to come on and just talk about good old Inventor. And I've been using Inventor for quite a long time, and I was actually looking forward to this presentation today. So glad to be with you guys. I want to go ahead and jump in. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and I don't want to spend hardly any time here in PowerPoint, but we do want to, have a proper introduction and talk about the agenda. We're going to be talking about really techniques that a lot of users are just either not familiar with or didn't know that were in the application. So these techniques are going to be in the sketching environment, user options or user interface options. We might run into just general workflow techniques, but modeling techniques, assembly techniques, drawing techniques, and hopefully if we've got time, we'll even get into rendering today inside of the application. I really don't have any major PowerPoints. I really have a mind map that I'm going to be going with, and I'm going to share that with you guys and let you see. I'm going to hop back and forth between my mind map and Inventor. I do want to give credit, though, where credit's due. And a lot of the examples that I'm going to be using are based on our Ascent Introduction to Solid Modeling class. I hope all of you have had the chance to come in and take training with us. You're going to see here in a minute, in my next few slides, that a lot of this that you're going to see today comes out of our training class. Not necessarily the core content, but the added stuff of being in the room with the instructor and just the conversations I've had with customers. So the content, a lot of it does come from the Ascent book, but I have created some custom content for today's presentation. And I've made an effort to keep this simple. I don't want to put a 200-part assembly up on the screen to show you one little technique. So you're going to see throughout the class some of the demonstrations, some of the data sets are going to be very, very simple. But hopefully you can take the content of what I'm sharing with you and take that directly into what you're doing on a daily basis with Inventor. I teach Inventor a lot. I'm probably coming off one of the busiest years as far as being an instructor. I was thinking before the class, I probably taught about 20 classes in the past calendar year. And then 20 Inventor classes. That includes Inventor Introduction, Inventor Beyond the Basics. I've also taught other classes with reality capture and integrating reality capture with Inventor, the factory design utilities. I mentioned those things before, but I've taught a lot of Inventor this year. And being an instructor, it just happens. People, they'll grab the software and maybe use it for several months before they come to training. It's not uncommon to have a person to come to training class who's been using Inventor for a year or so. And during the course of a basics class, you'll show something on the screen and you'll get this comment. I had no idea Inventor could do that. Or I've been using Inventor for a long time. I didn't know Inventor could do that. There are worse things I will hear. I'll hear something like this. How long has that feature been in Inventor? And then this is the worst one. If I had just known that last week, if I had known that little technique last week, it would have saved me so much time and effort and possibly money. That is the basis of the content that I'm going to share with you today. I have a YouTube channel. You can find me on YouTube. It's 3D all day, every day. It's one word. And by far, the most popular video I've ever produced on my YouTube channel is 10 things you didn't know Inventor could do. We're going to see some of those 10 things today, but not all of them. So I would encourage you, if you get a chance, if you haven't already, go to my YouTube page and after this, not right now, but after this, and check out this video if you're looking for a possible record of some of the things you're going to talk about in today's session. But that is by far the most popular YouTube video I have ever created. And in the comments, the number one comment is thanks. All right, I get that comment a lot, a couple of times a week. People will come in and they'll thank me. I had no idea you could do that. That saves me so much time and effort. And then the comment I get, the second most popular comment is, when are you going to show me 10 more things that Inventor could do? So hopefully today we're going to show you some more things beyond the 10 that are on YouTube that Inventor can do. So I want to get started. I want to hop over here to Inventor. And I mentioned my mind map. In these days, my brain's going every which way. So this is the way I mapped out the presentation today. And this is how we're going to start. And I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to kind of use this as an introduction to each of the techniques. So we're going to start with the line to arc trick. All right. So I'm in Inventor. And I'm going to start a new file, and we'll just jump over here. This is the standard Inventor part. I mentioned that I teach Inventor a lot, and of course, I would expect people learn from me quite a bit, but I learn from students all the time. It's not just the students that say, I didn't know Inventor could do that. I learn stuff every single week, and I just got back from vacation. This is actually my first day back from my vacation. And prior to going on vacation, I taught an Inventor class. And I had a gentleman in the class, and I want to give him a shout out. His name is Scott Goodson. I hope he's on today. If he is, let me know you're here in the chat. He was a brand new Inventor user about 2 weeks ago, and he showed me something that I had no idea Inventor could do. So I'm going to share that with you. This is the first tip from Scott Goodson. So I'm going to draw a sphere. So I'm going to start a sketch, and I already made a mistake. Let me hit escape. S for sketch. All right. You got to love the command hotkeys. S for sketch is a good one. I'm going to pick my front plane. And I'm going to draw a line. So we're going to start the line. Now, my typical first tip is the line to arc trick. So a lot of people have been using the line command forever, but they don't know that you can, instead of just drawing other line segments, you can take the little selector, which is that little yellow dot, you go back to the end of the line and you hold the left button down. So you get that little gray marker, and then I can come up and around and I can go to an arc. So that line to arc trick is amazing. And just real quick, I think most people practice this with drawing slots, things like that. So drawing a slot in Inventor with just the line command is amazing. That command has been in Inventor, by the way, since Inventor was first released. So right at 22 years, we've had that command inside of Inventor. And a lot of people don't know you can do that. Here's what Scott showed me this week. All right, I'm going to do a revolve in a minute to make my sphere, but I need to turn this line into a center line. So are you ready? Watch this. There, it's a center line. This is the marking menu. So if I select any object, all right, when you select an object, you can right click and you'll see what I call the flower petals. The menu in context of the drawing window will always have the marking menu near the top. And in this case, when you select a line, center line is the straight down version. So the way this works, let me undo and show you again. The way this works is you highlight the line and you right click and drag in the direction of the little command that you want to use. So by using the right mouse button and dragging, I can make that center line so quick. Construction line is dragging to the right. So I know I don't want to do that here, but if you need a construction line, it's just a simple right click and drag away. So those two things are it's just amazing how often I can incorporate that into my daily life. So let me drag this down. I'll snap it at 0 because, you know, the 10 commandments of modeling, you should always model at 0. So we want to snap that to 0. All right, so we're ready to go. Now here's my next tip for you. I've already mentioned the hotkeys. All Inventor commands, well, a lot of Inventor commands have hotkeys, not all of them. but the hotkey for revolve is R. So I know I'm in sketch mode, all right? I'm just gonna I'm gonna go to my keyboard, hit the letter R. You'll notice that because I included a center line, Inventor automatically assumed that that was the axis of revolution, and all I have to do is hit enter, and there's my sphere. I don't think I really hit any of the commands up here on the ribbon at all. Let me show you that again. So S for sketch. I guess in this case I'll have to go to my we'll go to my browser there. But S for sketch. I started the line command real quick. Draw that little arc there. Do that little trick about turning that into a center line. Let me drag this down a little bit here, and R, enter. There you go. Another thing that I want to share with you, and I teach my students this every time, and hopefully some of you have taken training with me. I talk about editing inside of AutoCAD. And I have this rule of thumb that if you want to edit anything inside of AutoCAD, the first thing you would try is to double click on it. I know a lot of people teach right click and edit, and that works, but if I go over here to this second revolve, I want to edit the sketch, and I'm just going to double click that sketch. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, I'll drag it down a little bit. I'm fooling around at the moment here, so there you go. There's my second one. I hope everybody knows this one. This is another one. I can copy a feature, and then I can paste a feature. Now it's asking me when I paste it, what plane do I want to paste it on? So I have to select the plane to paste it on, but then I'll select finish. So I can edit this sketch. I can drag it up here. Maybe drag it down a little bit. Maybe drag it up a little bit higher. There we go. Getting to be that time of year, so I figured we would copy paste a feature and drop it back in. And then let's see, let's finish off this one one more time, just to reiterate. I'm going to sketch. And again, forgive me for, I'm not putting a lot of constraints in on this. I'm just kind of doing this as fast as I can here. Right click close. And just one more time for the sake of it, I'm going to select that line, just drag straight down, make it a center line. We'll revolve that around and just hit enter. So there we go. Hope everybody knows you can color by feature. So I can go over here and go to the appearance drop-down list and go here to the letter S's, make that there. So getting to be that time of year, I figured we'd model a snowman real quick, but the purpose of this one was really to talk about a little bit about that marking menu, incorporating the command shortcuts, incorporating a center line in a revolve, eliminates the need to select an axis. So these are all things that, again, typical users would come to my class and say, hey, I didn't know Inventor was capable of doing that or work that way. So I'm going to close this one. We're not going to save that. Let's go ahead and see where else we're going in the presentation today. So we talked about creating the sphere, talked about the command hotkeys. These things are going to pop up more and more. But the next thing I want to focus on is context selections and command shortcuts. And there's an exercise that we do during the class that's we actually, again, I'm not going to show you what we teach in class, but this is all extra stuff that you would typically get if you come to training. You might, the instructor would include this stuff. This is stuff that's kind of beyond the basics. But in the training class, we have to chamfer an edge. And a lot of times people will, in a basics class, you learn to come up and start the chamfer command and select the edge, and then you can drag down to the desired size. Well, I'm not going to do that. All right, I'm going to cancel that. I'm simply going to select the edge. When you select the edge, the selection is context sensitive and will give you the ability to fillet and chamfer right here in this little mini toolbar. So I can click chamfer, and then through the incremental values, I can actually drag the little arrow until it stops at the desired half-inch chamfer. I can hit enter. There you go. I didn't have to mess with the dialog at all. Again, if I select an edge, I can hit chamfer I can drag this back to roughly 1/4 of an inch. Drag it down there. I can also select additional edges. Pick that there, sorry. And I can right click and select OK. You don't have to go over and interact with the dialog boxes. Fillet's the same way. So if you want to do a fillet, you can drag that down till I get to about a 1-inch fillet there. Click OK. Now I have to drill a hole concentric to this edge in the exercise. You drill a hole here, and the hole, there is no marking menu shortcut for hole, but well, I take it back. There's a marking menu shortcut for hole. Now I can never remember this, but hole is right there. It's just a right click away and click hole, select the edge, and there you go. And just there's a little circle here. I can drag that circle out to its 1/2 inch. I'm just going to type 0.5. I'll hit enter. There you go. So being able to just select these edges and either using the fillet or chamfer option is very nice. Another one that if you select a face, you'll get the sketch option. So you can create a new sketch, you can edit a sketch, share a sketch, create a sketch is right here at the end. So if you need to create a sketch on a face, you can absolutely do that. I'm not going to do anything major here, just going to draw a circle. We'll finish that up, and then you could E for extrude, right click OK. So knowing your command hotkeys, knowing your shortcuts, your context sensitive shortcuts by selecting objects first and then using the shortcuts that are available. I mentioned the command shortcuts. There's only one real way to get to know these, and that is to hover over these commands. The major commands, if I hover over extrude, you'll see the shortcut right here. Let me zoom in on that. You'll see the shortcut right there. That's the command, that's the keyboard shortcut. So E for extrude, and if I hover over revolve, you'll see it's R for revolve. Not every command has them, and some of them are kind of a pain, like sweep is Control-Shift-S. I've never done that in my life, but I can remember E for extrude and R for revolve. And that's in model mode. When you're in sketch mode, there are different ones. It's context sensitive. So for instance, C is circle in sketch mode. In assembly mode, C is for constraints. So it pays to incorporate some of these into your daily workflows, and you'll end up saving yourself a lot of time in your typical modeling life, knowing that those things are available. All right, let's move on. Let's see. I want to talk about offsetting a work plane prior to a sketch. This is all. A lot of this is just Autodesk spoiling the heck out of Inventor users. They've had 20 some odd years of developing Inventor, and they have just spoiled the end user to death at this point. So this is a good example of that. I'm gonna jump over here to Inventor, and I've got a part here. We're gonna do a lofted shape. And I want a loft, and what I need is an offset work plane. Now I know when you come to class, and it just happens, this is the way we have to teach it. When you come to class, they talk about going to the work plane drop down, and you would pick the offset from plane right here, and you do that. When they talk about work axis, you'd go to the work axis drop down menu, and you see all the options for creating work axis. And same thing with work points. There's a drop down menu here. So the thing that I'll share with you at this point is you don't need to use these drop down menus. Once you understand the nature of the command, like an offset plane, or I don't know, here you go, mid-plane between two planes, all right? Once you know what the picks would be for that, you don't need to use the drop-down menu. Let me give you an example. I'm hitting escape. I don't have the drop-down menu selected. But if I just click the work plane button, just click the button, and I select, you know, this plane and this plane, that's going to give me a bisecting work plane, mid-plane between two selected planes. And there's so many more that you could do, but you don't have to use the drop-down menus to create work planes, work axis, or work points. You can just use the commands themselves and just make the clicks that you know about. Another one is to create an offset work plane. In this case, I'm going to start the sketch command. So I am going to go over here. I'm going to click the 2D sketch command. You don't have to start it up on the ribbon, but I am here. I'm going to start the button here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to hover over this face, and I'm going to left click and drag upwards. So I'm going to left click and drag up, and it allows me to create this offset plane right in context of the create new sketch command. So I'm just going to type in a 3 there. I want a 3-inch offset, and click the little check mark. And I'm just simply going to draw a circle for this example here. All right, I'll finish my sketch. Now I want to do a loft just to pay off this. So I'm going to start my loft command. The loft command can go from faces to sketches, which is what I'm going to do here. It's a very nice feature. Click OK. The real purpose is to show you that you can actually use the sketch command to generate an offset plane. That's the main goal. But of course, you know, we're here. You want to shell this thing, you can absolutely do that. Finish that up. There you go. All right, on top of the offset plane being built into the sketch command, or the new sketch command, I also mentioned in this one that you don't have to use the drop-down menus for work plane, work axis, and work point. You can just click the commands and make your selections. So let's move on here. All right, now, told you I was going to keep some stuff simple here. So we're going to talk about building assemblies next and getting started with assemblies. And I'm going to put a little Lego minifigure together. Actually, I teach, when I teach, okay, this is when Rusty teaches, I usually have a data set for some Legos and that people can play with when we get into the assembly constraint area. And I'm going to use those. So here's some of my little custom content here. So in Inventor, I'm going to start a new assembly. I'm just going to do a basic assembly, and I'm going to bring in my first part. So we talk about in our class, we talk about how the first part is important. So I'm going to go into my library. I'm going to grab this torso part of the minifigure, and we'll bring this in. Now, with the first part in your assembly, hopefully everybody knows this, you're going to right click and place grounded at the origin. Okay, very good. That's your base component. It's really important that your base component be grounded at the origin. I'm going to just color this real quick. Blue, there we go. Now, I want to place my next part. So I'm going to select place, and the next part is called hips. And I'm going to bring that in. There we go. Now I'm just going to color this. I go to my appearance. What I like to do when I go to my appearance drop down, just to kind of make a shortcut of this, I hit the letter of the color I'm looking for, in this case smooth black. I hit the letter on the keyboard and it'll hop down there, and I can select that, hopefully a little quicker than scrolling back and forth. So listen, I've got to hook this up to this. I've got to constrain this thing to this one. And you know, forgive me, I have to talk about it. I just have to. So in a typical class, in a basics class, we start the constraint command, and we would pick the two faces. All right, I'd hit apply, and we could make a different solution for the flush constraint. And then with this one's one of those, it's one of those, all right? You know why you model at 0, why you have to model at 0? Well, that is because every once in a while you get a situation like this where you need to make sure the YZ plane of the torso has got to line up perfectly with the YZ plane of the hips. And I could add you can make your selections first and then start the constraint command. And you can make it a flush. That's the tip. You can make your selections first, then start the constraint command. All right, that's nice. The typical, 3 constraints and you're done. And that's what we teach in the basics class. Let me come over here and delete those though. Okay, we modeled at 0 for a reason. I mentioned that that's like one of the 10 commandments of solid modeling is that you model at 0. And there are so many downstream benefits of modeling at zero. Here is my favorite one. Under your productivity panel, there is a command here called ground and root. Now, we grounded the first part at zero, right? We right-clicked and placed it grounded at zero. That just grounded it. There are no constraints in the assembly. The ground and root command, though, check this out. If I pick ground and root, I'm going to select this component and look at this option, create origin flush constraints. This is going to constrain this part to zero with flush constraints. And it's the assembly. It's constraining itself to the assembly. But check this out. Boom. One click and I'm done. Here, let me do that again. Just watch this. Ground and root, that guy. Okay, done. You just added 3 constraints. All of them are flushes. Now, let's say, you can imagine that, okay, this is the perfect scenario, Rusty. It just happened to land perfectly. It was modeled that way. Usually 2 of these would come in perfect, centered perfectly, and you might have to right-click and edit this one and just make your picks to make sure it's in the correct location. Actually, I'm sorry. You might have to pick this one, the second one, and edit this. But it's just a right-click edit. You can go in and redo your picks very quickly with the 1 and 2 selections up here, and you can align that. So this is a very, very good tool to know, ground and root. It doesn't have a hotkey, but it's on the productivity panel. Next thing I want to share with you is placing multiple components. Here's one that just drives, every time I show this in class, somebody will scream and holler. So here you go. I'm going to place, I need some more parts to make this minifigure. So I need the 2 arms. I'm going to use the control button in the place component dialog. I'm going to select those 2. Let's see here. I'm going to grab a decal for the head. Let's see, we'll come down. There's some down here. I need a hand, head blank, and I need the 2 legs. I think that's everything. So you can pick multiple parts. We don't have to place parts one at a time. Again, I know in class, that's what we do. We place parts one at a time, but you can pick multiple components. So when I bring them in, it looks like they're all jumbled on top of each other. But if you drop them off, they kind of array themselves and they're spread apart pretty nicely. All right, bear with me. I'm going to change my colors here real quick. These are library parts, but I can adjust the color because the assembly in this case is going to hold the color. So I'm just going to take these 2, and that's a blue. So I'll just type in B for blue. There we go. All right. Now, there are a number of ways to put parts together. And I'm going to share with you, I can do what I'm about to show you with the mate constraint. It works very well with the mate constraint, but it's perfect for the insert constraints. All right, if you need an insert constraint, with the insert constraint, you just pick circular edges. That's all you pick. So here you go. What I'm going to do is the Alt drag method for assembly constraints. I'm going to hold the Alt button down on my keyboard. I'm going to drag, left click and drag that circular edge to this circular edge, and it adds an insert constraint. I can do the same thing over here. And just in a simple drag and drop method, I've got those insert constraints up there. Now, I would, if you want to learn the drag and drop for the mate constraint, it's very nice. Here, watch this. Hold the Alt button down, you drag a face. Now this is wrong, this just doesn't go together that way, but that's mated there. That was a mate face to face. Let me undo a little bit. If you want to, if I hold the Alt button down and drag a face, let go as you're dragging, let go of the Alt button, and then hit the space bar. This will make it a flush constraint. So there's a flush. Now the part's inside of it, which is kind of silly, but there you go. All right, so that's nice. So the Alt drag method for adding constraints, that's something I think everyone should know. Now, these are library parts. So when I make my library parts, I include IMAGINiT. And if I use my little zoom trick, I can zoom in and see I have an insert IMAGINiT on my part. Okay. A lot of times when you teach in the advanced class, when you teach IMAGINiTs, they name the IMAGINiTs, and everyone gets the idea that the names have to match. They don't have to match. And that Alt drag trick works for IMAGINiTs too. Watch this. If I hold the Alt button down on my keyboard, I left click and drag this constraint over to the opposing constraint, and it populates in. And this is very nice. I can pick right through the assembly, and there you go. It makes life so much easier. This idea of Legos it's not an accident. I want my CAD to work this way. I want my CAD to act like little Lego bricks. I want to use and incorporate those IMAGINiTs on my library parts. And again, if you need to know how to make IMAGINiTs, that's really not my point here, is to teach you how to do that. But in the advanced class, we have exercises on those IMAGINiTs, and those are great things to add to your library components. So here, let me grab the hand here, and I'll put down a hand. So one of my favorite things I teach in the basics class is the replace command. This is it's a neat little command, but let's say here the decal on his face, I'm going to change that. So I'm going to go to right click, and instead of deleting it and doing all of that, I'm going to go here, right click on that part. I'm going to come down to component and select replace. It'll take me, I'm going to go back out to my library, and I'm looking for this guy right here. So because I'm using IMAGINiTs, the part works, it updates just fine, just swaps out one for the other. And that's the way I want to work. I don't want to take parts and delete them and reconstrain them. I just want to replace them. It makes life so much easier. So my little guy is realizing that he's gone back in time, and he's, his hand is disappearing or something like that, like Back to the Future or something like that. So he needs another hand, right? Hopefully that's the main point of today's seminar, is to give you a hand and help you out. So you got copy paste, all right? Copy paste is great. I love Control C, Control V. That works really well. I hope you know that. But here's one that a lot of people don't know. If you select a part, see, I already have one hand. If I go to the browser, I can left click and drag this hand from the browser into the window, get a second one. So I don't even need to touch the keyboard. I can just use that little drag and drop trick. And then we can put the hand in place. There we go. And then we'll go back here to component replace, and we'll go find the, I like the Emmett smile here. Put that back on his face there. So there you go. And then, really, ideally, all of your library parts, if you're in that organization where all your parts are modeled, you just have to assemble them in different scenarios. So that's where, building your libraries up, having your libraries integrated into your projects or into Vault, and just being able to go to place, hop into your libraries. I've got utensils here, and I don't know, let's give the guy, let's give him a drill. All right. So if I select the drill, it's got an IMAGINiT, drag that over to his hand, populate it right there, and we're ready to go. Ready to get to work, okay? So I hope there was a few things in there, in that whole little scenario of different ways to do constraints, all right? Drag and drop for copy paste. This idea of IMAGINiTs, I hope you see your CAD can be like assembling Legos. You just have to get your library of parts and incorporate those IMAGINiTs. Those are fantastic things to incorporate, and it can make life so much easier when you do that. I don't think I mentioned it. I just got back from vacation, and I took my grandkids and my son and his wife. We went to Legoland in Florida, so I got Legos on the brain this week. But every time I teach a basics class, I always pull out this little character. We always put him together, and we talk about all the different ways that you can add constraints. All right, I feel like Willy Wonka. We got so much to talk about and so little time here, so let's keep going. We talked about all that. All right, we're over here to this point. All right, let's see. I'm going to skip text on a sphere. I've got a YouTube video for text on a sphere. All right, just watching my time here. If you need text on a sphere, you want to talk about that. I'll tell you what, we'll put it into overtime if we want to. We'll get there. But I do want to talk about this one. This one is 3DA, so 3D annotations, and specifically integrating them into things like part templates. So I want to start a new file here. Let's go to File, New. And I got a custom part template. I could teach an entire webinar on custom part templates. I really do believe in them, so I try to get like 99% of my work or 90% of my work done. I save a template so that I can start from that location and then do certain tasks. So here's one I generated this past week. It's a bounding box. When I come into this file, it's got some text here on the screen. This is 3D annotation. Now, there are some other things going on in this file, I'm not gonna lie. There's, I have some iLogic rules here for finding the CG and finding the bounding box. So you can do all of this with iLogic, and I'm not an iLogic expert, but go online and say, how do I find the bounding box? And somebody will show you, what the iLogic is for that. I did the same thing. How do I find the CG? And I worked out for a while. I got this stuff set up and I got it working correctly. So I'm using parameters. I'm declaring parameters here. That's what I'm doing. And then I'm integrating those parameters as iProperties and bringing them back and putting them on the front page. So I've done some work here in the background with this, but anyone can do this. And you'll see in a minute, you don't have to use iLogic for what I'm about to share with you. So what I want to do, I have a 3D CNC router down in my garage, and I just got some 3D carving software, and I'm doing my first 3D carves. So naturally, I'm taking my Inventor parts, and I want to carve the full 3D part out of a block. And for the first time in my Inventor career, I need to know the exact bounding box of a really complex component. So what I'm going to do, I started a part file. I'm going to use the derive command, and I'm going to bring in a component, the part called skull here. Bring in my skull. And I'm just going to click OK. I'm just going to use the defaults here. And as soon as I do, all right, as soon as I bring a part into this assembly, I can see the X length, the Y length, and the Z length. Now, I'm not oriented exactly right, so forgive me for that. But it's really nice to have a specific need for Inventor and be able to use something as simple as 3D annotation and a little logic to do this. Let me save the file real quick. Let me save this and say, I'm gonna save it in my, I guess I could save it in my workspace. I'm gonna call it skull. Sample. Some of you might be saying, how do you get that skull into Inventor? Photogrammetry, recap photo. There you go, write down recap photo, go look it up. I taught an AU class about turning photos into solid models. So if you want to go to AU online and look that up, this skull was one of the examples I used in that class. But anyway, I've got the skull in here. So there we go. But now, what is this 3D annotation? What is this? So if I go over here to the Annotate tab, all right, the General Note area. So I'm going to click the General Note. I'm going to pick this upper left-hand corner, and you'll see what I have written in this area. So let's say, for instance, I want the file name in here. So I'm going to put in here, right up here, I've got my parameter types. So parameter model, standard iProperties. I'm going to grab the part number, and I'm going to add that parameter to my text box. And if I click OK, it's that easy to start augmenting this and having whatever information, whatever property information, whatever parameter information you need. If you need it up on the screen, you can use this General Note feature and use the text editor to get that information, have it display on the screen. real quick, one of the things that I wish I could color code this a little bit better. It's one color for everything, but you can make things larger or smaller accordingly. So this one turned out really well. Listen, I have to give credit where credit's due. There's a guy on YouTube, Neil Cross, Tech 3D is his YouTube channel. I follow him a lot, and he did this example a couple of days before I went on vacation a couple of weeks ago. I want to give him all the credit in the world. He did it a little bit different than I'm doing it, but definitely want to give him a shout out. It was a great tip. And hey, you know, that's what YouTube's for. Browse for, I learn stuff all the time. So this was a very good one, and I'm incorporating this into some of the 3D carving that I'm doing downstairs. It's going to be a great benefit when I get it all done. Okay, need to move on. That was a good one though. That was a very good one. Let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, let's see. I want to get into drawings real quick. Got a couple of things with drawings I want to share with you. The first one is a draft view. I hope some of you are out there saying, what the heck is a draft view? All right, so here we go. Let's hop into Inventor. Let's jump in and do a new drawing. All right, a draft view allows you to draw on the sheet of paper. Look, don't tell anybody I said this, but forget modeling. All right, we don't need it. I got an AutoCAD drawing, did a couple years ago. I just want to get that AutoCAD drawing on the sheet of paper at scale so I can go play more golf or do something like that. The draft view, this is what this is for. I'm going to select draft view. I'm going to set my scale, and it'd be cheating if I do 1:1. So I'm going to put it at half scale, and I'm just going to call it draft view. Oops. I want to see my label, so I'll click OK. And of course, did I just hit cancel? Sorry about that. Scale. Okay. Now I'm here. So what I want to share with you, I'm going to hop into AutoCAD. Here's my view. All right. So I hope everyone knows that you can copy paste from AutoCAD to Inventor. That is huge. So I hope everyone knows this. I'm just going to highlight this geometry. I'm going to right click, clipboard copy. Then over here in Inventor, in the draft view, I'm going to right click, paste. I'm going to drop that off. Now, this is full scale data, okay? So if I go to dimension it, it's going to give me the real scale value that I would expect to get. It's just shown on the sheet of paper at half scale. So I'm going to finish this. There's my draft view. And again, if I were to stop and dimension this, let's say I want, there's a circle. All right, so that is the actual full scale value of that circle. Even though it's shown at half scale, it's still giving me the full scale value, just like every other Inventor view that you want to deal with. Real quick, I want to talk about text and leaders. This is a trick I talk about every time I teach a class. The text command is great, love text, but let's say something like, let's say I've got to put a note here that for details, you know, for sprocket detail, C5C, I'm sorry, 5C. Forgive me for not typing in everything. All right. I should say, there you go, I'm just going to leave it at that. But for sprocket detail, C5C. All right, so the thing with text, God bless it, text is independent. Text will always be independent. So if the view moves for whatever reason, I kind of move the text with it. And I always think that's a bit of a pain. So what do you do? Use the leader command. So just drop in the leader, attach it to something, okay? We're going to delete the leader in a minute, but in the dialog box, man, I cannot type today. Okay, now it's a leader, You might not want the leader, so you can right click on this and select delete leader. But check this out. This is so cool. It moves with the view. It's an annotation. It's an annotative object. It's attached to the view. And you can move it around independently. So if you want to move it, get it closer to a particular area, it's part of the view. Very, very nice. Text is great. Text has its uses. When I teach text, I talk about doing a bounding box, all right? Text box, those are great. And then you go out, find some place online with a, reputable, I don't know, we'll go here to this is the video. I want to grab this list of 10 things, all right? This tech tip covers all this stuff. You can copy this, whatever your source is. I can hop back over here and paste that into the text box. All right. Here's one. This is a tech tip while I'm here. You ever go to the text box and the text is so small, or it's off to one side and you can't see it? I hope you know this. I had to dig for this one. If in the text box, if I hold the control button down and I scroll, I can zoom in and out of the text in the text box. I don't have a way to do like control F to fill it. I don't have that, but I can zoom in and out if the text is too small or too big. Hold the control button and scroll in this box. You can zoom in and out and see your text easier. But this is what I use the text command for things like general notes. All right, got some more stuff to do, so let me get going here. Let's see, I'm gonna call an audible here. Let's go to File, Open. Let's see. I'm going to open up an assembly called the clutch bell. This is one we use in the class. And I just open it. It makes doing the drawing a little bit easier. So I am going to create a view of the clutch bell. There we go. I'm going to generate my section view. I think most of you guys know this one. You got this, you guys know this by heart. I'm going to do my section view. All right, so the thing that I like to show in my class is you can project section views. I can use the projected command and I can project my section view isometrically. There we go. I like that view. I actually like it better than this view. So I'm going to right click on this view over here in the browser and I'm going to suppress this view. I don't want to delete it. If I delete it, I'm kind of stuck with it, but I want to suppress a view. I like that option. I know I've seen people pull them off the screen and leave them out in space. You can suppress a view on your drawings, which is really nice. Let me get a bill of material in here. So we got to annotate, we got a parts list, I'm sorry. Listen at me. There we go. And of course, you guys, you can double click your parts list and the column chooser. And I'm just going to get rid of description and bring over material. We'll click OK. I hope everybody knows you can resize the parts list by dragging that. Now, I like balloons. All right, balloons are great. Balloons are great for items and part counts and things like that. But I want to show you the leader command. Again, I really do like the leader command. And what I'm about to show you, it comes from a guy named Steve Kaufman. Steve works with the substation design, it's substation design, or SBS, Substation Business Solutions. And forgive me if I got that wrong, but Substation Design Suite. They use Inventor to do substations. And I took a class with him and he did this and I thought it was really cool. So in the leader, again, just like earlier, I'm going to use the parameters here. So I'm going to grab standard I properties and things like the part number. So I can find the part number and add that. And then how about, let me add the material. So standard I properties, we'll go grab the material as well. Add that there. So we'll click OK. So here you can see the clutch bell is steel. Nice. Well, watch this. Right click, copy this. You got to do this with you have to do this way. You have to right click on it, use copy, and then right click and select paste so that it comes in on the cursor. But watch, I can then drop that there Drop that there. Drop this one up here. And drop this one there. And these update based upon what you're hooking them to. There we go. That leader command, that trick is amazing, and it works in so many different ways. It is really, really nice. Again, I'm watching my time. I might go over a little bit here, just to be on the safe side. I want to share with you guys as much as I can here. So a couple of drawing techniques here. I've got some other ones, but I want to carry on. I wanted to give you guys a render technique. And I think we're there. So I'm going to open up my IMAGINiT sign part, and we'll finish up on this one. So I'm going to go to File, Open. Actually, I'm going to go to my home view, and I'll open up this way. There we go. Now, this is a very quick look at something that it took me a long time to figure this out. So here's my IMAGINiT sign. And if I go to my top view, I want you to notice a couple things. One, I'm using multi-body modeling. So I've got separate bodies, and I've got a gap here between the letters and the sign. So the gap is important. You have to have the gap. Multi-body, not so much, but here's why I did the multi-body. So I want to go over here and temporarily turn off the back of the sign. I'm going to take the visibility off of this. And there we go. Now I'm going to flip this over. And I want to add some self-illuminating textures to the back of this sign. Now, to do that, I'm going to select these faces. And I'm going to go to my appearance ball. Now, for what I'm going to show you, you've got to use the Autodesk Appearance Library. So from under Home, I'm using the Autodesk Appearance Library, and I'm looking for LED. So just do a search on that. And here's the LED red. I'm going to use the red on. So I'm going to right click and assign that selection there. And then I'm going to pick the back of the little eye dot there. And this one's going to be yellow on. And I'm going to right click on that. Oops, sorry. And assign to selection. Now, you can double click these in the browser. These are self-illuminating, all right? So they're self-illuminating, and I'm going to change the luminance value here to a halogen, and it just bumps it up, all right? I'm going to do the same thing for the red. Self-illuminating halogen. Now, this does not work unless you're rendering, so don't worry, you're not going to see this. Maybe you want to play around with that real-time render stuff, but I'm not going to mess with that at all. So what I'm going to do is turn on my solid back again. I'll rip this around. I'm going to go to my front view, and I want to zoom in so you can see this. I'm going to go to Environments and jump into Rendering. And I'm just going to click Render, and I'm going to select the current view. And let's see what I get. So what I'm going to get is my sign, like there's LEDs behind it. It's backlit. And it's going to cast that illumination on that back part of the sign, that back board. And of course, the colors are there, and I think it looks really good. I worked with a customer a couple of years ago who did these displays for really major events. And they were all the time putting the LED strip in the back and backlighting the text and making that effect. And they were going through all kinds of craziness, but you can do this inside of Inventor. That's what those self-illuminating textures are for. And if you're an older user, you might remember way back when we had local lights. This is, to me, this is what I would do for a local light. It doesn't glow like the local lights used to, but this is just, to me, just about as good. So I can make that light kind of cast a glow on the objects that are around it. So you do have to have that back object in this scenario. So there you go. That's your render tip here. And of course, I could save that out, and I could re-render or keep it going if I want. But you guys get the idea. You can use those self-illuminating colors, and those self-illuminating colors. If you take your, I talk a lot about twin motion. If you take these things into Twinmotion, I believe the self-illuminating works inside of Twinmotion as well, if you're looking at that as a render solution. So there you go. I went over just a little bit, and I know you guys, I think we covered the majority of what I intended to cover. I think I could do some more of these. I got some overtime stuff here and some things like that, but I think we covered just about the stuff that I was intending to cover for this presentation. So I certainly know that you guys saw a lot of stuff. I went through that at like warp speed, and I'm sure you got questions. If you got questions, I would encourage you to put them in the chat. We'll see what we can do as to getting to them. But if you saw something here today, like, I don't know, how the Lego guy went together, and you want your parts to go together that way, it might be time for you to call your IMAGINiT support representative and get us in there and let us evaluate what you're currently doing and see if there's not a better way that we can help you do that. We are here, all right? No matter what you're doing, how you're working, we would be glad to come in and visit with you and just offer our expertise and see if there's not a better, more efficient way to get to where you're going. I certainly want to thank you guys for your attention, for making time for this today. I hope you got something out of it. I know some of you are experts, and I hope you got at least 1 or 2 nuggets out of this. I hope for some of you that you got more than that, but appreciate your time and effort here today. So I want to open it up for questions at this point.